My beloved child, stop scrolling, not because the world has suddenly become quiet, but because something has been trying to reach you beneath all the noise, and this moment refused to let you pass it by. There are thousands of voices competing for your attention, yet only one has followed you through every silent night, every crowded room, every smile you forced when no one realized how heavy your heart had become. You did not arrive here by accident. Before your finger moved, before your eyes found these words, something deeper than coincidence began unfolding. Pause here for just a little while. What you are about to hear was waiting patiently for the exact version of you that exists today. I have watched you carry burdens you never admitted were breaking you. I have seen the conversations you replay inside your mind after everyone else has forgotten them. I have counted every sigh you believed disappeared into empty air. Nothing about your struggle has been invisible to me. You wondered if anyone noticed how tired you had become from pretending that everything was under control. But I noticed. I always noticed. Even when you convinced yourself that silence was strength, I heard the cries hidden behind your quiet. There is something I need you to understand before this message continues, because if you miss this, everything else will sound like ordinary encouragement instead of the truth your soul has been starving to hear. It is not a good look, my child. No, I am not speaking about your appearance. I am not speaking about your clothes, your achievements, or the opinions people throw at you as if they define your worth. I am speaking about something much deeper. Something that has quietly become part of your daily life without you realizing how much space it has taken inside your spirit. You need to stop being so doubtful of what I have already placed within you. Read that again with your heart instead of your eyes. You have become so accustomed to questioning yourself that doubt now speaks with your own voice. It wakes up before you do. It follows your thoughts throughout the day. It sits beside you when opportunities appear. It whispers, not you. Maybe someone else. Maybe another time, and because it sounds familiar, you mistake it for wisdom. It is not wisdom, it is not humility, it is not caution, it is the slow theft of everything I have been preparing inside you. You keep asking why certain doors have not opened, but there are moments when the door is already unlocked, and it is your own hesitation standing in the doorway. Have you noticed how quickly you believe criticism, yet struggle to believe hope? Have you noticed how one careless comment from another person can stay in your memory for years, while 100 moments of gray somehow disappear before sunset? That is not who I created you to become. Something convinced you that expecting goodness would only lead to disappointment. So you learned to lower your expectations before life could lower them for you. You called it being realistic. But slowly, realism became fear dressed in respectable clothing. I have been waiting for you to recognize the disguise. You have prayed for courage while secretly making agreements with insecurity. You have asked me for direction while refusing to believe you could recognize my answer. You have requested peace while continuing to feed every anxious thought that promises certainty but delivers only exhaustion. My beloved, can you see the pattern? The battle has never been only around you. It has been within you. There are storms that pass across the sky, and there are storms that build homes inside the heart. The second kind is always more dangerous because eventually you forget the difference between the weather outside and the weather within. That is where you have been living, not because I abandoned you, because you slowly accepted an atmosphere I never intended for your soul. I remember the version of you before disappointment became your daily companion. I remember the dreams you carried without apologizing for them. I remember the compassion that flowed naturally from your heart before betrayal tempted you to become emotionally unavailable. I remember the laughter that escaped your spirit before survival convinced you that joy should always prepare itself for bad news. You have changed, but not in every way you think. The world believes your greatest transformation came through the pain you endured. They are wrong. Your greatest transformation is still ahead of you. That is why this conversation had to happen now. Because there is a moment approaching, a moment closer than you imagine, that will ask a question only the healed version of you can answer. If you continue speaking to yourself the way you have been, you will hesitate. If you continue seeing yourself through old wounds, you will shrink. If you continue measuring your future by your past, you will mistake my invitation for someone else's opportunity. I refuse to let that happen. Listen carefully. Some people believe I only speak through miracles that shake mountains or signs written across the heavens, but often, I begin with a whisper that unsettles the lies you have grown comfortable believing. This is one of those whispers. You have spent too much energy trying to become acceptable to people who never possessed the authority to define your value. Think about that. How many decisions have been influenced by the fear of disappointing someone who never truly understood your calling? How many dreams remain untouched because you imagined the criticism before the opportunity even arrived? How many beautiful beginnings have ended before they started simply because your own thoughts voted against you? You call it overthinking. Heaven calls it unnecessary captivity. Do you remember the last time your heart became excited about something? Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was an idea. Maybe it was simply the possibility that life could become different. Notice what happened next. Before anyone else spoke, before circumstances changed, before reality offered any evidence, your own mind interrupted. What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not enough? The questions came so naturally that you never asked where they learned your name. That is the mystery. Not every voice inside your mind deserves a seat at your table. Not every thought deserves your agreement. Not every fear deserves your obedience. Yet somewhere along your journey, you stopped testing the voices and started trusting all of them equally. Imagine opening your home to every stranger who knocked on the door. You would call that dangerous. Yet you have done exactly that with your inner life. Every accusation, every insecurity, every memory that insisted you were permanently damaged. Every prediction that assumed tomorrow would repeat yesterday, you welcomed them, not because you wanted suffering, because familiarity can become more comfortable than freedom. I know this surprises you. You expected me to speak about the people who hurt you. Instead, I am speaking about the agreement you continued making with the echoes they left behind. There is a difference. The people may have walked away, but their words found shelter inside your thoughts, and now those words pretend to be your own. That ends here, not because everything will suddenly become easy, but because truth has finally interrupted the conversation. You wonder why this feels so personal. Because it is. long before you questioned yourself. I knew the sound of your voice, long before you doubted your future. I had already seen the chapters waiting ahead. You cannot surprise me with your potential because I placed it there. You cannot confuse me with your weakness because I understand exactly what you are becoming. You cannot convince me that your story is over while I am still writing. There is something remarkable about seeds. When buried beneath the ground, they appear forgotten. Darkness surrounds them, pressure covers them, silence becomes their environment. Anyone looking from the surface assumes nothing is happening, yet underneath, invisible transformation has already begun. Tell me, did the seed stop being alive simply because nobody could see it growing? Neither have you. You have mistaken hidden seasons for hopeless seasons. There is a difference. Hidden does not mean abandoned. Delayed does not mean denied. Quiet does not mean absent. But your heart has become so accustomed to immediate evidence that you sometimes overlook invisible preparation. You have prayed, "Show me a sign." What if your persistence through everything that tried to destroy you was already the sign? What if the fact that you still care despite disappointment is the evidence? What if the reason you cannot completely give up is because I never removed my hand from your life? You have called yourself stubborn. I call you preserved. There were moments when giving up seemed logical. Moments when walking away appeared easier than believing again. Moments when your own reflection looked unfamiliar because pain had rearranged the expression on your face. Still, you remained. You may not have walked confidently. You may not have smiled every day. You may not have understood why you kept moving, but you remained. Do not underestimate what that means. The enemy of your purpose expected you to disappear long before now. Instead, here you are, still searching, still listening, still hoping. Even if hope has become quieter than it used to be, hope does not need to shout to stay alive. Sometimes it survives as nothing more than a single heartbeat refusing to surrender. I have protected that heartbeat. There is another truth you have avoided because it feels uncomfortable. You have become addicted to proving yourself, not to me, to everyone else. You keep thinking that one more accomplishment, one more compliment, one more successful moment will finally silence the insecurity. It won't, because insecurity does not negotiate. It simply moves the finish line farther away every time you arrive. That is why victory sometimes feels strangely empty. You reached the goal, but the peace never arrived with it. You know exactly what I mean. There have been moments when others celebrated you while secretly you wondered if they had made a mistake. Moments when people admired your strength while you questioned whether you were simply good at hiding your struggles. Moments when success felt like borrowed clothing you feared someone would eventually ask you to return. My child, you were never meant to live as a guest inside your own calling. You belong where I have placed you. Stop apologizing for occupying the space I prepared for you. There is someone watching your life right now, not to judge you, to learn from you. They have never spoken your name, you have never met, yet your courage will one day become permission for theirs. Do you understand why your healing matters now? It was never only about you. The freedom you are resisting carries someone else's breakthrough inside it. That realization changes everything. Because suddenly your private battles are no longer merely private, they are preparation for conversations you have not imagined, preparation for people whose prayers are quietly connected to your obedience. Preparation for moments that seem ordinary until years later when someone says, "Your words changed the direction of my life." You laugh at that possibility, not because you dislike it, because you cannot picture yourself having that kind of influence. Again, there is the doubt. It arrives so smoothly you almost missed it. See how quickly it tries to interrupt what I am building. It has practiced for years. But today, it is losing ground, not all at once, not dramatically. Quietly, the same way dawn replaces night. Nobody hears the sun rise, yet darkness still disappears. Something similar is happening inside you as you read these words. Old agreements are weakening. Old identities are trembling, old labels are beginning to sound unfamiliar. You may not feel transformed yet. Transformation often begins before emotion catches up. Trust the process you cannot fully measure, because there is something I have not told you yet, something connected to a decision you are going to face sooner than you think. When that moment arrives, two voices will compete for your attention. One will sound like the version of you that has always been afraid. The other will sound unfamiliar at first, not because it is a stranger, because it is the voice of the person you are finally becoming, and what happens in that moment will change far more than you realize.